H.R. 5746. The rule makes an order a motion offered by the chair of the Committee on House Administration or her designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment with an amendment consisting of the text of the Freedom to Vote, John R. Lewis Act. The rule provides 1 hour of debate on the motion equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on House Administration or their designees. Madam Speaker, this is about more than a bill, and it's about more than a process. This is a rescue mission to save American democracy. Because right now, we are in the midst of the most significant period of voter suppression in recent history. All across the country, in service to a lie started by the former president and spread by some in this very body, state legislatures are moving to make it harder for people to cast their ballot. Polling places are being closed so the nearest location is now miles and miles away. Early voting times are being slashed during this global pandemic, so it is now too unsafe for some people to vote. Purges of voting rolls, including faulty voter purges, are becoming more likely and more common. And strict voter ID laws are being used to disenfranchise more and more people from casting their ballots. Madam Speaker, in one state, it has even become illegal to provide voters waiting in line with food and water. That is why we're here today, because some believe that the only way for them to win is to rig an election. This is voter nullification, pure and simple. Now, many on the other side want us to turn a blind eye to all of this, just like they turn a blind eye to the insurrection and the creeping authoritarianism. Well, I'm not willing to look away. People fought and died for the freedom to vote in this country. We served with someone who nearly gave his life for the right to vote, Congressman John Lewis. He was beaten by mobs using baseball bats and chains, attacked by racist members of the KKK, and even thrown in jail. But still, he fought for the freedom to vote. If he was willing to withstand all that to do what's right, then certainly we can cast a vote to defend our democracy. You know, John once said, and I quote, "Change often takes time. It rarely happens all at once. In the movement, we didn't know how history would play itself out. When we were getting arrested and waiting in jail or standing in unmovable lines on the courthouse steps, we didn't know what would happen, but we knew it had to happen." End quote. Now, I don't know what will happen in the Senate, Madam Speaker, but I know that this vote has to happen because the freedom to vote is under assault. We have a system today that undermines the civil rights of the young, the poor, and those who don't look like me. It's a system that has allowed presidents to win elections despite losing the popular vote. It's a system that has allowed politicians to gerrymander their way into office. And it's a system that gives the 26 least populous states, representing just 17% of the country, the chance to derail legislation that the vast majority of Americans support. That's the reality of the Senate filibuster, Madam Speaker. And make no mistake, despite the claims by some, the filibuster is not sacrosanct. It's been changed over 161 times in the last 5 decades, and nowhere does it appear in the Constitution of the United States. Just recently, a bipartisan group of senators came together to advance a filibuster carve-out to raise the debt ceiling. Now, I'm glad that they did. That was the right thing to do. A default would have been catastrophic for our economy. Certainly, allowing a carve-out for voting rights is also the right thing to do. We need to pass the Freedom to Vote John Lewis Act to ensure that every American has the ability to make their voice and vote heard in our democracy. And I wish we could get a majority of Republicans to support voting rights. You know, they used to. The Voting Rights Act was reauthorized 4 times with overwhelming bipartisan support, including in 2006 under the presidency of Republican George W. Bush. But something's changed. This isn't your grandfather's Republican Party anymore. It is a party defined by the big lie, wild conspiracy theories, and winning elections by trying to suppress the vote. To set a standard that we must act on this bill or that the Senate should act on filibuster reform only if Republicans come along is a fool's errand. On what planet, Madam Speaker, are the people causing the problem going to help solve it? Now, I'd rather be on the side of John Lewis than cast my lot with the big lie. I'd rather go it alone to defend our democracy than do nothing together. And yes, I'd rather lose an election than win by rigging the outcome. This fight may not be new, but it has never been more urgent. History is watching, Madam Speaker, and this moment is bigger than any of us. With the future of our democracy in the balance, I pray that my colleagues join me in saying the same and supporting this rule and the underlying measure. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Minnesota is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank the representative from Massachusetts for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume. Today, we were informed by the majority at the last minute that we would be brought in to discuss the NASA Enhanced Use Leasing Extension Act of 2021, which was amended by the Senate and will be amended yet again here in the House if this rule passes. I don't think anyone here is surprised by yet another last-minute meeting, but I am starting to feel the effects from all of the whiplash over the last year. This time, House Democrats seek to insert the Freedom to Vote Act and the Voting Rights Advancement Act as a last-ditch effort to cater to the Senate majority's sporadic attempts to get something passed for their radical base, even though we all know neither of these bills will pass through the Senate. House Democrats and Senator Schumer still need bipartisan support for this partisan bill. And certain other senators in their party have yet to cede to the fringe of their party and go nuclear on a long-standing Senate principle, the filibuster. Whatever the thought process behind this effort tonight, it is disappointing that it is yet another deeply partisan attempt to federalize all elections. The Constitution places the responsibility for elections at the state level and has a long history of letting each state run their own elections. But H.R. 4, a component of this bill, would grant the federal government unprecedented control over state and local elections. It would empower the Attorney General to bully states and force them to seek federal approval before making changes to their own voting laws. This is an assault on the rights of states and local governments to manage their own elections. The right to vote is one of our most fundamental rights as citizens. It is upsetting to see the majority take advantage of this important issue because they are so desperate to maintain their power. This can be seen almost explicitly in the Freedom to Vote Act, which includes a new campaign finance provision that would ensure certain candidates receive millions of dollars in public funding for running a campaign. The majority does not discuss this provision very often, but do the American people really want public dollars to go to fund campaigns? State oversight in elections is important. Like so many things, the majority fails to recognize what works best for one state is not necessarily going to work in another state or across the country. States know what practices work best for their voters, as they have done throughout history. It was not hard to find many flaws in this bill, and I was able to do so with less than an hour's time. But I remain disappointed in the priorities and practices of this majority. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman. Today is my birthday, and I could not think of a better gift for the American people. In the last 24 hours, we found that 5 states, Republicans, decided to put in false certifications to determine that Trump actually won the November 2020 election. In the bill in Texas that was passed after the big lie, They allowed the legislature to overturn a duly held election. Do you not think there is a siege on the rightful vote of Americans, no matter who they are, of people of color, of young people? I am so happy that we are decided to move forward on the Freedom to Vote Act, but the John Robert Lewis Voter Enhancement Act that will stop the detrimental gerrymandering that wants to eliminate members of color. It is time now that the relic of the filibuster no longer promote discrimination and racism, but frankly that we move on protecting democracy, on cradling democracy, on recognizing that we are patriots who stand to support the idea of the Constitution. I support this rule because the Constitution rules and the American people deserve the right to vote. I yield back.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Minnesota is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the representative from Texas.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'm prevented by House rules from using the profanity that I'd like to because I stand here absolutely outraged. I'm outraged because the Democrats have outdone themselves with this lie. I'm outraged because the Democrats have made a mockery of bipartisan collaboration for cheap political gain. I'm outraged because the Democrats have not 1 ounce of respect for this institution, or the rules, or the consequences of their actions in this chamber. A few hours ago, H.R. 5746 was the NASA Enhanced Use Leasing Extension Act, a simple 3-page bill that was good for NASA, good for our space industry, and good for our taxpayers. A bill that I was very proud to co-sponsor. Now in the dark of night, this bill has been hijacked and mutilated to become the latest iteration of the Democrats' federal takeover of our election system, a wolf in sheep's clothing. In fact, the only thing left from this original bill is its number. And what's worse, I can't even remove my name as a co-sponsor. Isn't it ironic that the same bill that Democrats are using as a vehicle to steal elections in perpetuity was itself stolen? I can't say that I'm surprised. Just like with elections, if they can't do it legally, Democrats will find a way to hijack and steal it. And all of this from the party who claims Republicans are the obstructionists. Give me a break. Madam Speaker, I demand that my name be removed from this Trojan horse, and I urge every single one of my colleagues to vote no. And with that, I yield back.
The chair cannot entertain the gentleman's request. The gentleman from Massachusetts is
Madam
recognized.
Speaker, I'm not going to be lectured about respect for this institution by anybody who, after a violent attack against this Capitol, the people who work here, this democracy, that after a violent attack, then coming to this House floor and voting to overturn, to nullify the will of the American people with no basis of fact at all to do that. So I will not be lectured by anybody who would do such a thing. And quite frankly, I think it's unconscionable. And at this point, I would yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, the distinguished Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the recognition. I thank the gentleman from Massachusetts, the distinguished chair of the Rules Committee, for his leadership in bringing this important legislation to the floor tonight to enable us to fight for voting rights tomorrow when we vote for the legislation. Many of us will have more to say tomorrow on the substance of that bill, but I just want to place this action in time. Today is an historic day because we are taking a big step forward. Thanks to the leadership of the distinguished majority leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, we are in position now to take a step forward with this rule to enable us to debate the bill tomorrow to fight for voting rights. Yesterday, or Monday, 2 days ago, President Biden made it crystal clear that the Senate must find a path forward to enshrine critical voting rights legislation into law. That was yesterday. Today, House Democrats will take another step to defend our democracy with legislation called the Freedom to Vote John Lewis Act. We'll send it to the Senate for urgent consideration after we debate it and vote on it tomorrow. I want to thank John Sarbanes of Maryland. This is a bill that we have voted on in this Congress, in the last Congress, but also in this Congress, in this House of Representatives, we voted for the People Act, which is the essence of the legislation we are considering now. It was H.R. 1 in the House. In addition to that, it is attached to H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voter, it's more than that, it's John R. Lewis Voter Advancement Act, which will be, as I say, part of this package tomorrow. So because of the leadership of Chuck Schumer, John Sarbanes, Zoe Lofgren, Terry Sewell, who has carried this legislation again and again, Mr. Butterfield, the distinguished chair of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Nather, so many people, we've had this debate over and over again in the House and in this Congress. So when I hear people say, oh, here comes a bill we've never seen before, no, we had a vote on the House on this already. We had a vote on the House on this already, and this is as it comes back to us this time from the Senate. Yesterday, as I said, the President made it crystal clear that we had to get something done. Again, Mr. McGovern is giving us that opportunity now. So I just want to say that why this is necessary, and it has been said in your committee this evening, but let me just be brief because the night is getting on. Since we passed the bill before, and in the course of the year, the Republicans have continued their assault on voting rights in our country. Nearly 400 bills introduced, 20 of them enacted into law, which not only suppress the vote, making it harder for people of color, people with disabilities, people to vote, but also legislation to nullify the vote. Doesn't matter how the people vote, it matters how the people we appoint decide how they vote. That is not a democracy. It strikes to the heart of the democracy. Strikes to the heart of the democracy, and that is why this legislation is even more necessary than when it was first introduced. It is a continuation in legislatures across the country of the assault that was made on this Capitol to undermine the Constitution, the Capitol, the Congress, and our democracy on January 6th. And as the distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts mentioned earlier, that there was not even a vote to accept on the part of many on the other side of the aisle the results of that election. I thank you not only for your leadership tonight, but for that dangerous day for you to take over the chair after the security spirited me out because of threats on my life. So again, this is urgent. It's a repeat of what we have done and done again and again. We're glad that the Senate is ready to receive this next iteration with very little change from what we have passed before. In Georgia, when President Biden delivered a clarion call to defend our democracy, he said, "I will not yield, I will not flinch, I will defend your right," he said to folks, "to vote and our democracy against all enemies, foreign and domestic." And so the question is, he said, where will the institution of the United States Senate stand? Well, we'll see. Now, we have the question of the filibuster. Now, until we had this debate on this voting rights and filibuster's become a discussion, what was your view of what that word meant? When somebody said they were going to filibuster something or they were engaged in a filibuster, you thought they were going to talk for a long time. Filibuster, to talk for a long time. Not to obstruct justice, not to obstruct debate, not to obstruct the majority to be able to take a vote, to discuss something. By passing the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act, the Democratic House will make clear that we in this House stand with the President, yes, but with the American people to fight for voting rights. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. The sanctity of the vote, the integrity of our elections. That is what is at stake. So I thank all of our colleagues who participate in this for their committed leadership for the people in the fight for voting rights. And with that, urge an aye vote and yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Minnesota is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the representative from Texas.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you to my colleague from Minnesota. Madam Speaker, I'm glad that it was brought up tonight, those who have served and been willing to give their lives for this country. You know, if we're going to talk about numbers, let's talk about the numbers in 2020. More people voted in 2020 than ever in the history of this country before. And yet we're talking about suppression. Well, under Democrat leadership, our country is breaking records. Record high inflation. Record high illegal border crossings. Historic levels of drug and human trafficking across the border. Skyrocketing energy prices. Surging crime rates. And countless empty shelves in grocery stores across the country. Americans are watching the value of their paycheck literally shrink before their eyes in real time as inflation spikes to the highest levels that we've seen in 40 years. The border is an absolute disaster. I was there last week. Illegal border crossings are again the highest ever, with close to 2 million illegal apprehensions under President Biden's watch. Fentanyl has crossed our southern border at levels that we have never seen before, and it's the leading killer of young adults in this country, 100,000 lives plus in 2021. And instead of bolstering American energy security, the White House is spending their time lobbying for a Russian pipeline that will most certainly be used as a weapon against our allies in Eastern Europe. The policies of this administration and a Democrat Congress have led us into a record-breaking season of crises. But instead of working to fix these issues, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are attempting to distract the American people. Do we really think that Americans aren't paying attention? And tonight we're twisting the rules
The
to
gentleman's
pass
time has
a
expired.
bill.
Madam Speaker, I yield an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized.
And tonight, Democrats are twisting the rules to pass a bill to nationalize our election system, allowing for hard-earned taxpayer dollars to finance political campaigns, and handing control of congressional district boundaries to the powers that be in Washington, requiring states to allow felons to vote and overriding wildly popular voter ID laws. And to reference the president's disappointing speech yesterday, supporting voter ID or opposing this Washington power grab does not make you George Wallace or Jefferson Davis. That is nonsense.
The gentleman's
Americans
time has
deserve
expired.
a president and a government that will lead us out
The
of
gentleman's
crises,
time has
not
expired.
create them. And I yield back.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me just remind my colleagues that that voter suppression takes many forms. Sometimes it's Republican state legislatures making it more difficult for people to vote. Sometimes it's members of bodies like this that, on one hand, brag about the record turnout in the last election, but have been working overtime to try to nullify, to try to disqualify the votes of the people of this country. It's stunning. I request unanimous consent to insert in the record a July 2, 2021 U.S. News and World Report article entitled, "Report, Republican-led state legislatures passed dozens of restrictive voting laws in 2021." And Madam Speaker, one voting rights expert said in this piece that we are in the midst of, quote, a voter suppression effort we haven't seen since the likes of Jim Crow, end quote. To suggest that this isn't happening is to ignore reality. I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Minnesota is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the representative from Texas.
The gentleman is recognized.
And I thank the gentlelady for yielding. This bill that we got in short order tonight does not reflect the actual text. And once again, the Rules Committee had very short notice to consider the text without really any chance of being able to read it. And certainly now we're on the floor with no chance to amend it. It's supposed to be a NASA-focused bill, but it's actually a Trojan horse. A Trojan horse the Democrats are using to drastically change election law. Do it without any input from Republicans. No input in the Rules Committee, no input here on the floor, no chance to amend it in the House Administration Committee. It's a messaging bill from the Democrats to get a bill quickly passed in the Senate. While they've got an agreement, we saw how their chaotic attempts to pass Build Back Better, how difficult that became, and how that bill eventually failed. It is ridiculous that such large changes to longstanding law would happen approaching the middle of the night when the American people won't realize until after the fact what we've done. And that could be no surprise. Look, does anybody really think the American people voted for 8% inflation, for gas lines, for gas at over $4 a gallon, for a chaotic foreign policy that has caused the death of many of our allies and many of our servicemen, as the exit from Afghanistan showed? No one voted for that. And yet, we're told there's no problem, we'll just push ahead and we're going to get this done. We have a lot of issues that we could face, that Americans are facing right now. No oversight of the COVID relief bills amid reporting of waste and abuse. Inflation is sky high, grocery shelves are empty, and the crisis continues on our southern border. Congress has provided over $5 trillion in coronavirus relief funds, but no oversight. Billions of dollars remain unspent, and inflation is at its highest level in decades. Right before Christmas, the president said everybody ought to get a COVID test, and by golly, he'd make them available. They're not available today. I went online and ordered some because I thought this may be important. 2.5 weeks later, I received them. Of course, I paid for them. These weren't free from the government. But there aren't enough COVID tests, and the hospitals and healthcare facilities are on life support. What is our administration doing? What is our Democratic leadership in Congress doing? Nothing. Our response should not be so uncoordinated and effective going into the third year of this pandemic. And let me just point out, we've not had a single hearing in the Energy and Commerce Committee where we have jurisdiction over this on this very issue. Another national crisis is the hundreds of thousands of migrants pouring over our southern border since President Biden took office and declared an open border. Our frontline border officials are overwhelmed and under-resourced. This Open Now sign remains on, and even more concerning, we require our federal agents to take a vaccine. It's a mandated vaccine, and yet the people coming in, it's voluntary. We'll give them a vaccine if they would like, but of course they don't have to take it. And I will tell you, being down in El Paso last week, it's all about getting these kids in the ORR facility, getting them pushed through and getting them placed with families. The average length of stay now at Fort Bliss is down to 12 days. That means no background check. What are you going to do when the stories start emerging about how these children have been misplaced and abused in the locations that we, now, the government, are sending them? We're providing the last mile to the cartel's business. These crises remain unresolved. Congress could work on these. We are supposed to do that. We are the people's representatives. And yet, we spend our time in the middle of the night doing something that will never become law. And I yield back.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to insert into the record a December 24th, 2021 Guardian article entitled, "Report Shows the Extent of Republican Efforts to Sabotage Democracy."
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, more than 260 bills were introduced in 41 states last year to hijack the election process. If this isn't a national emergency, I don't know what the hell is. I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Minnesota is recognized.
Madam Speaker, if we defeat the previous question, Republicans will offer an amendment to the rule allowing for the immediate consideration of House Res 866. Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment into the record along with extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
So moved.
Thank you. This resolution states clearly that the right to vote is fundamental to democracy and that legitimate elections are those which are safe from foreign interference, including illegal votes from foreigners. The resolution denounces the practice by some cities in America of giving the right to vote to non-citizens, including foreigners who have violated our laws by being here illegally in the U.S. The resolution states firmly that the House of Representatives recognizes that allowing illegal immigrants the right to vote devalues the vote of every United States citizen. Madam Speaker, I present this amendment and I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Illinois.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge my colleagues to defeat the previous question so that we can bring up my resolution, H-Res 866, to highlight how imperative it is for election integrity and voter confidence that only American citizens vote in our elections. As members of Congress, most of us have attended a naturalization ceremony or two during our time of service. We've watched these very moving ceremonies as these prospective Americans take the oath of allegiance to the United States of America. They pledge their allegiance to our country. They swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's one of those moments that makes America the greatest country on earth. They've earned the right to vote in our elections. What New York City and others are doing by allowing nearly 1 million non-citizens to vote is a slap in the face to those who worked hard for that sacred right. While I don't support what New York is doing by any means, it's our job that we protect federal elections. Common sense will tell you that combining non-citizens and eligible American voters on the same voter rolls is ripe for abuse. It's really just not practical. Currently in Illinois, non-citizens cannot vote, and if they do, they face major legal consequences and could be deported. But in 2016, Illinois' automatic voter registration program mistakenly registered to vote more than 500 non-citizens who had done the right thing by checking the box stating they are not citizens on their driver's license application. However, several of these non-citizens voted in the 2018 and 2019 elections. This does nothing to bolster voter confidence in our elections. In fact, Madam Speaker, it does the opposite. Not only does this undermine the integrity of our elections, but the mistake by Illinois could also have had dire consequences for these individuals if they seek citizenship in the future. All of this could be prevented if states were actually maintaining accurate voter rolls, which has been required by federal law for nearly 30 years. Whether intentional or not, we know this is happening. It's undermining the integrity of our elections. This amendment would simply ensure those who are non-citizens who do not have the right to vote in federal elections are removed from states' voter rolls. This is especially critical as my friends on the other side of the aisle push for a federal takeover of elections. Let's defeat the previous question so that we can take a stand with my resolution to support only citizens voting in our elections and encourage states to adopt reforms that don't put non-citizens at risk of intentionally or unintentionally breaking the law by illegally voting in federal elections. I yield back.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Madam Speaker, let me just say to my colleagues, this is kind of pathetic. It's a non-binding resolution that does nothing and I guess attacks immigrant parents who are involved in local school boards, I guess. But, I mean, really? I mean, this is this is your response to what is happening all across this country in terms of the attacks on voting rights. The bills we're talking about bringing to the floor, let me just tell you some of the things it does. Our bill, which will become law, would enhance protections for individuals with disabilities. It would make Election Day a national holiday. It would improve election security by requiring post-election audits and voter verifiable paper records of votes. It would protect elections from foreign interference. It would promote digital ad transparency. It would end partisan gerrymandering. I can go on and on and on and on. But the difference here is that I think we recognize, and I think unfortunately this has become a partisan issue, because I think there are a lot of independent voters and Republican voters across the country who are concerned, like Democrats in the House are, about the attacks on voting rights. I mean, the idea that we have one state that passed a law that said it's going to be illegal to give people water who wait in a line to be able to cast their vote, and we know in some states people have to wait for hours and hours and hours to vote, but somehow that would be criminalized, that would be forbidden. I mean, give me a break. I mean, I don't know what the hell happened to the Republican Party. I mean, I don't know when they decided that the basis for who they are was a big lie. We had an election in 2020. As one of my colleagues pointed out, a lot of people showed up and voted. I mean, the people who voted returned me and returned my Republican colleagues and brought new members to this body. And yet, they have been working overtime to embrace a big lie after a violent insurrection where people's lives were threatened. Our staff, the people who work here, lives were threatened. 140 Capitol Police officers were injured. After all of that, they still embrace the big lie and are working to try to nullify the legitimate votes of the people of this country. It is stunning to me. So yeah, to take this, whatever it is, meaningless, non-binding resolution, and I guess maybe you could say you're for something, but it's nothing. It's pathetic. Or we can actually do something about protecting the right of every single person in this country to vote. With that, I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman.
I would just like to remind my colleague from Massachusetts that I believe in 2016 he also objected to certification of the election, and it doesn't always sound like that when he speaks about the objections. But with that, Madam Speaker, I would like to yield 3 minutes to the representative from Louisiana.
Madam Speaker, just this morning we learned that inflation rose 7% over the past year. It's the highest rate since 1982. We have empty shelves. We have unfilled jobs due to labor shortages across the country. Schools are shutting down again. Crime is soaring in our cities, and faith in our institutions is in rapid decline. And what are Washington Democrats focused on? They want to blow up the rules of Congress so they can pass their extremist agenda to federalize local elections, legalize ballot harvesting, ban voter ID requirements, fund their own campaigns with precious taxpayer dollars. It is truly unbelievable to the people back home. Chuck Schumer says this is a response to the 2020 election and the state election laws passed in 2021. That's obviously not a true statement because the bill they're peddling was first introduced, in 2019. Joe Biden says it's to stave off the reemergence of a second Jim Crow era in states like Texas and Georgia, which passed election integrity measures this year. But that's a ridiculous charge. I mean, literally, it is the opposite of the facts that any person can verify with a single internet search. The truth is, Georgia's law has more days of early in-person voting than Joe Biden's own home state of Delaware. The 2020 election saw the highest turnout of voters in 120 years. And according to the Pew Research Center, 94% of Americans agree it is, quote, easy to vote. There is no widespread voter suppression in this country, and everybody knows it. In fact, voter registration disparities between minority and non-minority voters in states like Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana are below, listen, the disparities are below the national average and lower than Democrat-run states like New York, California, and Delaware. That's the facts. For Democrats, the only problem they're seeking to solve is the problem of how to secure for themselves more votes. Now, we've heard in New York, Democrats recently voted to allow foreign citizens to vote in American elections. You heard it right. It's a blatantly unconstitutional scheme that defies the most basic rule of our system. Hey, 7th grade civics, American elections should be decided by American citizens. New York's ridiculous new law has been challenged in court. We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but we can all take a stand here tonight to reaffirm to the people of this great nation that their legally cast votes will not be watered down and negated by the ballots of non-citizens. Madam Speaker, if the previous question is defeated, Republicans will amend the rule to provide for consideration of a resolution that acknowledges this simple truth. Allowing illegal immigrants and non-citizens to the right to vote devalues the franchise and diminishes the voting power of United States citizens. We all have an opportunity to go on record right here tonight to make our positions on that issue clear. I urge my colleagues to reaffirm the rights of U.S. citizens and vote no on the previous question. And I yield back.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentleman.
also protects the right of eligible citizens to vote. Subversive legislation such as this, allowing non-citizens to vote, signed recently into law in New York City, and most of the provisions that we are debating today will, if passed, undermine the core principles of freedom and individual rights that are enshrined and protected by our constitutional republic. In fact, a recent ABC News poll found a crossroads. Too many precious American souls have sacrificed life and
time
limb
has expired.
to protect our sacred right to vote.
The
Now is the
gentlewoman's
time
time
for
has
self-governance.
Madam Speaker, I yield the an additional 20 seconds.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Too many precious American souls have sacrificed life and limb to protect our sacred right to vote. Now is the time to choose self-governance by, of, and for the people.
To, it will do things that, quite frankly, I think most reasonable people, I don't care what their politics may be, would think is the right thing to do. Unfortunately, what's reasonable amongst the American people is not always reasonable here in the Congress. So I think the effort that my Republican colleagues are engaged in really is about nullifying results that they don't like. Well, you know what? We all want to win elections, but sometimes we lose. It's not pleasant, but if that's what the people want, then the people should get what they want. So I, again, urge my colleagues
to handle their own election as it has been in the past. I oppose the rule and the underlying bill, and I ask members to do the same. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to oppose this rule and the underlying bill.
The gentlewoman yields back. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank my colleague from Minnesota for her service in this Congress and her service on the Rules Committee. She said that she hasn't heard any compelling arguments why we should pass these bills. Maybe she wasn't listening to me because I think I made a lot of compelling arguments here today why these bills are incredibly important. You know, something is badly broken, and we must have the courage to fix it, even if that means fixing it alone. That's what it means to do the right thing. Politics be damned. Because this is about more than petty partisanship. This is about whether we defend democracy or we sit back and we watch its demise. You know, I could never live with myself if I did nothing. And I think I speak for a lot of my colleagues on this side of the aisle. I wish there were more colleagues on your side of the aisle who felt that way. You know, working with my colleagues, I'm going to try to do everything possible to stem the insidious tide of voter suppression in this country and the attempts to nullify the will of the American people. You know, because there's no guarantee that America will forever be a democracy. It isn't planted in our soil. It isn't floating through our air. It is us. We're the only ones who can guarantee democracy prevails. And this vote is about nothing less. I strongly urge a yes vote on the rule and the underlying measure. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. The gentlewoman from Minnesota.
Madam Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
Pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.
So, 2 votes on the floor of the House tonight. This the procedural previous question vote. Members, tonight considering the rules for debate on legislation that combines 2 bills previously passed by the House that deal with voting rights and changes to election and campaign finance laws. House Democrats are doing this through a process that would allow the Senate to begin debate on the same bill without any Republican support. However, a change to filibuster rules would still be required for the legislation to pass in the Senate. Here in the House, we'll watch as members vote on this previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Rule itself.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Representative Adams of North Carolina, I inform the House that Representative Adams will vote yea on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Gates from Florida, I inform the House that Mr. Gates will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Welch of Vermont, I inform the House that Mr. Welch will vote yes on the previous question.
California. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Chairwoman Maxine Waters, I inform the House that Chairwoman Waters will vote yes on the previous question to advance the very important issue of voting rights.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin, I inform the House that Mr. Grothman will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
As the member designated by Chairwoman Lofgren, Chairwoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, and Representative Sean Patrick Maloney, inform the House that these members will vote yea on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Hagedorn of Minnesota, I inform the House that Mr. Hagedorn will be voting no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Cuellar of Texas, I inform the House that Mr. Cuellar will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Joyce and Representative Smucker from Pennsylvania, I inform the House that Representatives Joyce and Smucker will be voting no on the motion or on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from the great state of Delaware seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. DeGette of Colorado, I inform the House that Ms. DeGette will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the distinguished gentleman from the great state of Washington seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by Representatives Bera and Del Bene, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Matsui, I inform the House that Ms. Matsui will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Panetta of California and Butterfield of North Carolina, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Presley and Grijalva, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, Mr. DeFazio votes yes on the previous question.
What purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
As the member of designated by Ms. Kim of California pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Kim will vote no on the previous question.
Oh, she's stepping away. For what purpose does the gentleman from Hawaii seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a member designated by Representative Kahele, I inform the House that Representative Kahele will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Ruiz, I inform the House that Representative Ruiz will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mrs. Granger of Texas, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Granger will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Congressman Bobby Rush of Illinois, I inform the House that he will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated for Mr. Waltz of Florida, I inform the House that Mr. Waltz will be voting nay on the previous question.
Oh, New York. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Ocasio-Cortez of New York, pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez will vote yea on the previous question. As the member designated by Ms. Bush of Missouri, pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bush will vote yea on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Speer, I inform the House that she will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Wilson of South Carolina, Mr. Wilson will vote no on the previous question.
Rhode Island. Purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Bass of California, Representative Pingree of Maine, Representative Wilson of Florida and Representative Torres of New York. I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
Does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. McCall of Texas, I inform the House that Mr. McCall will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
As a member designated by Ms. McCollum, I inform the House that Ms. McCollum will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Reps. Christ, Cardenas, Castor, and Lawson, I inform the House that these members will vote yay on the previous question.
Gentleman from Florida seek recognition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Ms. Salazar of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution number 8, I inform the House that Ms. Salazar will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I'm the member designated by Representatives Swazi, Pocan, Doggett, and Jayapal, and I rise to inform the House that these members will vote aye on the previous question.
What purpose does the gentlewoman from West Virginia seek recognition?
As a member designated by Ms. Lesko of Arizona, I inform the House that Ms. Lesko will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Dakota seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Reschenthaler from Pennsylvania, I inform the House that Mr. Reschenthaler will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Kansas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Rep. Cleaver, I inform the House that Rep. Cleaver will vote yes on the previous question.
Does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Stanton, I inform the House that Representative Stanton will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Jerry Nadler of New York, Ann Kirkpatrick of Arizona, Andy Kim of New Jersey, Donald Payne of New Jersey, Albio Series of New Jersey, and Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Lee of California and Ms. Tlaib of Michigan, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Lee and Ms. Tlaib will vote yea on the previous question on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated by Ms. Herrera Butler from Washington, I inform the House that Ms. Herrera Butler will vote nay on the previous question.
All right. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Brooks from Alabama, I inform the House that Mr. Brooks will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated for Mr. Crawford from Arkansas, I inform the House that Mr. Crawford will vote nay on the previous question.
What purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Schreier, I inform the House that Representative Schreier will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated by the following representatives: Vela of Texas, Napolitano of California, Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, Roybal Allard of California. I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Titus of Nevada, Price of North Carolina, Kind of Wisconsin, and Doyle of Pennsylvania, I inform the House these members will vote aye on the previous question.
Thank you. Brad Sherman. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Congressman John Garamendi of California, I inform the House that Mr. Garamendi will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Katko of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Katko will vote nay on the previous question. And Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Kinzinger of Illinois, I inform the House that Mr. Kinzinger will vote nay on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Dwight Evans of Pennsylvania's 3rd District, and pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Evans will vote yea on the motion to move the previous question on House Res 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Maloney of New York, I inform the House that Representative Maloney will vote yea on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Ruppersberger, I inform the House that Mr. Ruppersberger will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Stansbury, I inform the House that Representative Stansbury will vote yes on the previous question.
Come on up. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representatives Auchincloss, Chu, Cooper, Ledger Fernandez, and Frankel, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition? Purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. McEachin and Ms. Porter, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on the previous question.
New Hampshire. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New Hampshire seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Bonamici, Brownlee, and Mang, I inform the House that Representatives Bonamici, Brownlee, and Mang will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated by Representative Juan Vargas, I inform the House that Mr. Vargas will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Good evening, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by the Honorable Mr. James Langevin of Rhode Island and pursuant to House Rule 8, I inform the House that Mr. Langevin will vote yes on the motion to move the previous question on H.Res. 868. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, is the member designated by Mr. Blumenauer, Mr. DeSaulnier, Mr. Lowenthal, Mr. Liu, Ms. Barragan, Ms. Moore, Mr. Cohen, and Mr. Moulton. I inform the House that these 8 members will vote yes on order in the previous question.
For what from Illinois seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Caston, I inform the House that Representative Caston will vote yes on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Lamborn of Colorado, I inform the House that Mr. Lamborn will vote no on the previous question. As a member designated by Mr. Reed of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Reed will vote no on the previous question. And as the member designated by Mr. Risher Husson of North Carolina, I inform the House that Mr. Husson will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Mace of South Carolina, I inform the House that Ms. Mace will vote no on the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Jacobs of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Jacobs will vote nay on the previous question. Thank you.
For what purpose? For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
Got like 3 members. Represented by Representative Swalwell, I inform the House that these members will vote aye on the previous question. As a member represented by Representative Boyle, I inform the House that these members will vote aye on the previous question. As a member designated by Representative Gomez, I inform the House that these members will vote aye on the previous question. Thank you.
On this vote, the yeas are 220 and the nays are 201. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have.
Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I request the yeas and nays.
Pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device.
So this should do it. The final vote tonight, the House voting to approve the rules for debate on voting rights legislation. Members back tomorrow for general debate on the bill and a final vote.
H-Res 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition? North Carolina, sorry.
North Carolina. As a member designated by Mr. Lamborn of Colorado, I inform the House that Mr. Lamborn will vote no on the rule. As a member designated by Mr. Reed of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Reed will vote no on the rule. And as a member designated by Mr. Risher Hudson of North Carolina, I inform the House that Mr. Hudson will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Adams of North Carolina, I inform the House that Representative Adams will vote yes on House Resolution 868.
What purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Jacobs of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Jacobs will vote nay on the rule.
Purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Reps. Ocasio-Cortez, I inform the House that she will vote yea on HRES 868. As the member designated by Rep. Bush of Missouri, I inform the House that she will vote yea on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Mace of South Carolina, inform the House that Ms. Mace will vote nay on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Bass of California, Representative Ritchie of New York, Representative Wilson of Florida, and Representative Pingree of Maine, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on House Resolution 868.
What purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated for Mr. Crawford from Arkansas, I inform the House that Mr. Crawford will vote nay on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representatives Presley and Grijalva, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a member designated by Ms. Salazar of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution Number 8, I inform the House that Ms. Salazar will vote no on House Resolution 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California
Speaker, as a
seek
member designated by Ms. Matsui, I inform the House that Ms. Matsui will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Colorado seek
Madam
recognition?
Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Gates of Florida, I inform the House that Mr. Gates will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Spear, I inform the House that she will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Louis Gohmert of the great state of Texas, I inform the House that Mr. Gohmert will vote nay on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, Mr. DeVazio votes yes on HRES 868.
Oh, for what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Brooks from Alabama, I want to inform the House that Mr. Brooks will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Moulton of Massachusetts, Ms. Moore of Wisconsin, Mr. Cohen of Tennessee, Mr. Blumenauer of Oregon, and Mr. Lou Lowenthal, Barragan, and DeSaulnier of California. I inform the House these members will all vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Kim of California, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Kim will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Price of North Carolina, Titus of Nevada, Doyle of Pennsylvania, and Kind of Wisconsin, I inform the House these members will vote aye on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Kinzinger of Illinois, I inform the House that Mr. Kinzinger will vote nay. And Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Katko of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Katko will also vote nay.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Rupersberger, I inform the House that Representative Rupersberger will vote yes on HR 868. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Who's next? For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Smucker and Mr. Joyce, both of Pennsylvania, I inform the House that both Mr. Smucker and Mr. Joyce will vote no on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Evans of Pennsylvania's 3rd District and pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Evans will vote yea on the motion to move the previous question.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Dakota seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Reschenthaler from Pennsylvania, I inform the House that Mr. Reschenthaler will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Cuellar of Texas, I inform the House that Mr. Cuellar will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin, I inform the House that Mr. Grothman will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Panetta of California and Mr. Butterfield of North Carolina, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Granger of Texas, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House Ms. Granger will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. McEachin and Ms. Porter, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated for Mr. Waltz of Florida, I inform the House that Mr. Waltz will vote nay on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Stanton, I inform the House that Representative Stanton will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Utah seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as member designated by Mr. Herrera Butler from Washington, I inform the House that Mr. Herrera Butler will vote nay on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Kansas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Rep. Cleaver, I inform the House that Rep. Cleaver will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Hagedorn of the great state of Minnesota, I inform the House that Mr. Hagedorn will be voting no on on the rule. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Representatives Berra and Del Bene, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from West Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Lesko of Arizona, I inform the House that Ms. Lesko will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
As the member designated by Reps. Cooper, Frankel, Chu, Auchincloss, and Ledger Fernandez, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Wilson of South Carolina, Mr. Wilson will vote no on the rule.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New Hampshire seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representatives Bonamici, Brownlee, and Mang, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. McCall of Texas, I inform the House that Mr. McCall will vote no on the rule.
I will. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Stansbury, I inform the House that Representative Stansbury will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois, I inform the House that he will vote yes on the resolution 868.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Delaware rise?
As the member designated by Ms. DeGette of Colorado, I inform the House that Ms. DeGette will vote yes on HRES 868.
For what purposes does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Chairwoman Maxine Waters, I inform the House that Chairwoman Waters will vote yes on House Resolution 868, the rule which will advance voting rights in this country.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Good evening, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by the Honorable Mr. James Langevin of Rhode Island and pursuant to House Resolution number 8, I'd like to inform the House that Mr. Langevin will vote yes on HRES 868, the rule providing for consideration of the House amendment to the Senate amendment to H.R. 5746, the Freedom to Vote, the John R. Lewis Act. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
As a member designated by Representative Gomez, I inform the House that Representative Gomez will vote aye on H.R. 868. As a member designated by Representative Swalwell, I inform the House that this member will vote aye on H.R. 868. As a member designated by Representative Boyle, I inform the House that Member Boyle will vote aye on H.R. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by John Garamendi of California, I inform the House that Mr. Garamendi will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
Minnesota? For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
As a member designated by Representative Betty McCollum, I inform the House that Ms. McCollum will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Jerry Nadler of New York, Ann Kirkpatrick of Arizona, Andy Kim of New Jersey, Donald Payne of New Jersey, Alvio Series of New Jersey, and Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Carolyn Maloney of New York, I inform the House that Ms. Maloney will vote yea on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Ruiz, I inform the House that Representative Ruiz will vote yes on House Resolution 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Reps. Lawson, Christ, Castor, and Cardenas, I inform the House that these members will vote yea on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Hawaii seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a member designated by Representative Kahele, I inform the House that Mr. Kahele will vote yea on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by these members, Vela, Napolitano, Vicente Gonzalez, Roy Allard, and Vargas, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
As the member designated by Chairwoman Lofgren, Chairwoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, and Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, I inform the House that these members will vote yea on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Caston, I inform the House that this member will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Lee of California and Ms. Tlaib of Michigan pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Lee and Ms. Tlaib will vote yea on adoption of H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
As the member designated by Representative Schreier, I inform the House that Representative Schreier will vote yes on H.Res. 868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Swazi Pocan, Doggett, and Jayapal, I inform the House that these members will vote aye on House Resolution 868.
The tally on this measure, the ayes 220, the nays 202. This resolution is adopted, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlelady from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to urge the Senate to protect our fundamental right to vote. Communities of color are disproportionately targeted by the wave of voter suppression laws we've seen across America. These attacks are just the latest battle in the centuries-long, racially fueled war on voting rights in our country. But the right to vote is foundational to our democracy. Without it, we would cease to be a government of, by, and for the people. This is a life and death issue for America itself. The late Congressman John Lewis wrote that democracy is not a state, it's an act. I urge my colleagues in the Senate to act, to prioritize democracy and ensure access to the ballot box is not undermined. I urge them to send voting rights legislation to President Biden's desk to be signed into law. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor of a very important day we're celebrating today, National Pharmacist Day. Today we take time to recognize and appreciate all of our community's pharmacists and everything that they do for their patients. During the pandemic, pharmacists joined with the frontline workers to help alleviate the pandemic by distributing life-saving medicines to their patients. Pharmacists are an integral part of each and every community that they keep people safe and healthy. As a pharmacist, I'm proud to take time today to recognize and honor my colleagues nationwide. In a world where our frontline workers are heroes, we must not forget those that bond with their patients and ensure life-saving and correct dosages are being distributed properly. I'm proud of my time spent as a pharmacist, and I'm very grateful for my colleagues and what they do to better their communities. Take time today to thank your local pharmacists and appreciate all that they do. Thank you all for your service to our towns, our cities, and our states. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
What purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is now recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to reflect on the remarkable progress of our nation's economy over the previous 12 months in what I suspect history will label the Biden boom. The progress achieved in 2021, helped along by the American Rescue Plan, is unmatched in American history. Our economy is growing at its fastest rate in 40 years. The nation added 6.4 million new jobs, and unemployment is now at 3.9%, representing the sharpest ever one-year decline. J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon recently said the consumer balance sheet has never been in better shape, predicting continued extraordinary growth. And a Bloomberg analysis found that President Biden's first year is ranked either first or second among presidents for, among other things, GDP growth, S&P 500 performance, non-farm payrolls, manufacturing jobs, and business productivity. But I recognize we have real challenges, including worker shortages, supply chain disruptions, and inflation. But working together, Congress and President Biden are positioned to move our economy forward and get us through this pandemic to a place we were stronger than when we went in. Whether Republican or Democrat or independent or anything else, every American should be celebrating the resilience of the American spirit. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from Pennsylvania is now recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Lou Gallagher. longtime president of Gallagher Dairy Company, who passed away in December, surrounded by his family. He was 87 years old. The Gallagher Dairy Company is the third-generation family-owned regional dairy company headquartered in Johnstown, Pennsylvania since 1914. Lou was chairman and president for more than half a century. He turned his family's dairy business into one of the largest enterprises in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic region. Gallagher Dairy distributes ice cream, milk, iced tea, and other beverages throughout several states. Mr. Speaker, Lou was a giant of the dairy world who served as a board member of the International Association of Ice Cream Manufacturers and a president of the Quality Checked Independent Dairy Processors Cooperative. He was equally devoted to the Johnstown community, which he served in various capacities over the years. As president of the Chamber of Commerce and the Greater Johnstown Jaycees and a board member of several other organizations, Lou was always committed to the region's success. Lou Gallagher was an incredible force for good in the Johnstown region, and he leaves a legacy that will be remembered for years to come. My prayers are with his family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
To ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Speaker, I rise today to honor and celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. It is often said that it is the words of a giant who could galvanize all of America around the wonderful concept of the beloved community. Dr. King was assassinated in 1968, and so many have come from his spirit. But I thought this year, in the midst of the very divisive fight for voting rights, we could just remember his marches, his words, believing in a dream, and recognizing the goodness of America. He marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. He walked with our friend John Robert Lewis and his other friends, Hosea Williams and Reverend Andrew Young and Ralph David Abernathy. And he always thought that he could never give up as he went to the White House with Lyndon Baines Johnson and insisted on the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. We must honor him in these coming days, not by words and tributes, but by doing the right thing, building on the democracy that he so much dreamed for, even though his life was cut short. And to thank his family, Martin Luther King III, and all of his children and his wife for the sacrifice they made for America. I pay tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Address House 1 minute, revise step my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many areas in Northern California across my district have seen record snowfall due to recent winter storms. That's good in a lot of ways, but also we've seen tens of thousands of residents have been without power for several weeks in freezing temperatures, and our governor has banned also the use of gas-powered generators, banned gas-powered generators as a heat and electricity source. Meanwhile, those who do still have the power face all-time high energy costs as they try to heat their homes thanks to President Biden's anti-domestic energy policies. On President Biden's first day of office of his term, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline, effectively killing 11,000 American energy jobs, stopping new exploration for oil, and which have driven up energy prices and increased our dependence on foreign oil, who he's asking for from China, Russia, and the Middle East. The cost of having our homes heated has increased 30% since last winter, and more than 1 in 4 Americans reported they were forced to forego other basic expenses to pay their energy bill in this last year. Under the climate agenda President Biden has, gas prices are up nearly 60%. The cost of propane, kerosene, firewood, energy are all up over 30% from this time last year. We must reverse these damaging and unnecessary policies and reduce our reliance on foreign oil before more harm can be done to the American people and our economy. I yield back.
Any other member seek recognition? Pursuant to Section 11, Sub B of the House Resolution 188, the House now stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.
The House today voting to expand education benefits to members of the National Guard and Reserves. Members also approved the rules for debate on legislation combining two voting rights